Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 119 of Crunch Time. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. I am Tanner Dislin. I am joined, as always, by Sam Godsey, and we are the N326 duo. The big game has come, and it has passed. The Kansas City Chiefs, of course, are your Super Bowl 58 champions. Patrick Mahomes winning MVP because, of course, he did. He is inevitable. All of the Patrick Mahomes stats were out after this game. Before we get into all of that, Sam, how are you doing today?
Man, I am good, man. I know football is officially over, of course, until the UFL kicks off, but it's my favorite time of year. The college basketball is coming to a close in the heat of conference play. College basketball, by far my favorite sport. So, as we said goodbye to football, there's not much better than college basketball.
You're right about that, man, for sure. For today's episode, of course, we'll start with winners and losers. We will talk about the big game, maybe revisit some of the prop bets we were talked about in last week's episode. Dive into a little bit of the NFL awards. We didn't talk about that last episode, and those are out. And then with that, we'll kind of put a bow on this NFL season. And as Sam said, get ready for some of the major sporting events to come. But before we get into the Super Bowl, of course, we always start with winners and losers. So, Sam, who is your winner of episode 119?
Yeah, I think this is a great way to kick this episode off. And I'm gonna go with the Nickelodeon
It
broadcast
was
of the Super
electric.
Bowl.
It was
It
electric.
was better than CBS, and I'm not even lying here. If you watched any second of it, you knew they kicked off with "Sweet Sweet Victory," sung by Mr. SquarePants himself. Had, of course, SpongeBob and Patrick in the booth. Sandy Cheeks, sideline reporting. We had Boots and Dora explaining the rules. We had it all, and there were some memorable moments. I mean, when I can't remember who fumbled it, but Patrick had a really memorable line. I don't know who. I'm blanking
It was
on who
McCaffrey, I
fumbled.
think, who fumbled the first fumble of the game when McCaffrey fumbled it.
Yeah, it was electric.
Yeah, the famous Patrick quote of "firmly grasp it."
Yep,
I
that's what it
said,
was.
"firmly grasp it." When he's when Squidward can't hold on to the jellyfish net, and he shouted that out on the fumble. I mean, everything you said, "Sweet Victory." I don't think there's a single song on this earth that will make me want to run through a wall more than "Sweet Victory" by SpongeBob SquarePants. So it was a great way to kick it off. Did you happen to see the celebrities in attendance in Bikini
Oh,
Bottom?
of course,
We
of
had
course.
LeBron James.
LeBron James. We had Finn Diesel. We had Snoop Fishy Dog or something like that. Billy
Doja
Billy
Catfish,
Billy Eilish,
Doja Catfish,
Herring Styles. It was
Harry Styles.
and then of course we saw them show Travis Kelsey, and it was Taylor Swift's boyfriend, and the note was he is good at football. So
Spot the lie.
spot the
Spot
lie.
the lie.
We also got a special appearance by Gibby himself. And then when the Chiefs scored 3 hours later, finally scored a touchdown. Just absolutely electric, man. Electric broadcast. If you didn't watch it, I I
What were you
give it
doing?
I give you props for listening to CBS broadcast. We'll touch on that later.
It
But
was it was just so much fun. And then just the jokes they made too. Like I know the actual in person play by play announcer was like, "How do you guys light campfires underwater?" And then Patrick was just like, "What's the problem here? What do you say? Like, what's the
yeah.
problem here? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, oh my gosh, it was hilarious." And
Shouting out Iowa, of course.
shouting out Iowa. Noah Eagle said that Iowa likes to say punting is winning, which is definitely true. And then they even took a shot at Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw
I
this.
did. I did see that. That was wild.
That was very funny. SpongeBob making a comment about 25 to Leonardo DiCaprio. Very, very funny stuff. stuff for adults to laugh at, kids to laugh at. Yeah, I hope they do it again because it was pretty awesome. For my winner, we talked about it a little bit because, well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I had trouble thinking of a winner, so I settled on college basketball because the spotlight is on them now 100%. You mentioned it, Sam. We have some pretty intense in conference schedules going on for the rest of the month and even into the beginning of March. And when we hit conference championships, which are always really fun that week of conference championship games. And then, of course, Selection Sunday in 5 weeks, we will have, or 5 weeks from we're recording on Monday. So 5 weeks from Super Bowl Sunday. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be 4 in a few days till we have a bracket. So that is going to be very, very nice. As you said, like I think personally, I think the Super Bowl is better than the NCAA basketball championship game if you're just comparing the games. But March Madness is definitely much better than the NFL playoffs as a whole. So the actual we talk about all the time, the best event in sports, March Madness, next up on the docket. I love the Adam Silver meme. Get ready to learn blank, buddies. Get ready to learn March Madness, buddy, because it's coming. And yeah, that's about all I could come up with for a winner. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce need me to tell them they're winner of the episode because life seems to be going pretty well for them right now. So college basketball is my winner.
There you go.
But Sam, who's your loser of the episode?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this, flipping it on the other side of the coin, and that's Tony Romo. He was one of the announcers for the CBS broadcast, and he was annoying. Very, 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 very annoying. Would not shut up at all. I love to see the word count he did compared to Jim Nance because it seemed like Jim Nance got interrupted about every 4 seconds. They even screwed up. Romo even screwed up Jim Nance final play call where the Chiefs won in OT. You obviously hear Mr. Romo, but it was awful, Tanner. It was
Bro would not
brutal.
stop yapping. This downfall has to be studied because everyone on planet Earth was like, "Wow, this Tony Romo guy, he's the new wave of the industry. A former player who can bring insight, and he was predicting play calls, and we were like, this is awesome."
Yeah.
And then turns out he sucks. Like, not 2 years later, everyone wants to wring this guy's neck, and it's crazy how much of a downfall it was. And I don't think, at least I don't know if I'm being biased here, but I don't think that us as football fans changed our preferences in announcer. I think he's completely changed the way he announces games.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're completely warranted in having the switch up on Tony Romo, where now he just talks to talk. He talks about nonsense. He doesn't bring any insight. Like, he used to bring so much good insight and break down like coverages in a way that a layman can understand and all this stuff. And now he's just yapping and yapping. He's not even taking his time to make sure the stuff he's saying is correct. He misspeaks all the time. And it's crazy that this has happened. I will say, my mom did have it first. She has hated Tony Romo ever since he was put in the booth. So she was right. Shout out you, Mom, because you nailed it. But he is annoying. And man, I really hope that CBS's next Super Bowl, I think, is in 4 or 5 years. 4, I think, is in 4 years. So hopefully by then he's out of the booth because that was pretty bad.
Yeah,
that was pretty bad.
Terrible.
Yeah, terrible. But for my loser of the episode, I am going to go with Super Bowl attendance because Super Bowl 58 announced that 61,629 people attended the Super Bowl at Allegiant Stadium. And that is, according to Yahoo Sports here, said that it was the lowest announced attendance for any non-pandemic Super Bowl. Now, it doesn't specify a time frame because I have a feeling more people attended this than they did like Super Bowl II. But still, I assume this is in the modern era, whatever that means. But yeah, still, that's that's a little rough. And I think it draws attention to just a bigger problem. And it's been this way forever. So this is nothing new. But something that really annoys me is that, as football fans, we all like the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl is not for fans. It's just not. It's for rich people, it's for businesses. It's basically a corporate show of who can sponsor more things, who can have their name on more things, who can have the the bigger like box or suite, and who can be on the field. Like it's a complete celebrity show. I feel like there are no real, like, if you're just a normal fan of the team, there's no way you can afford to go. And it just sucks um because Super Bowl like it should be for fans. If you're a
Yeah.
lifelong fan of a team, you should be able to go watch your team play in the Super Bowl, and it's just not the case right now, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks. And yeah, I mean that's highlighted by this number, and especially one in Vegas where there's, I mean, all the gambling and the casinos and all. It's just a complete corporate show. It's all about the money, and it's kind of getting annoying. I don't know. Like I said, it's nothing new, but this year specifically, it just really started to piss me off. Maybe because it was in Vegas, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's kind of annoying. But we still love the Super Bowl, of course. It is the big game, but yeah, something to note. Just really kind of grinds my gears as a sports fan. But should we get into the game?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, seemed like it was a tale of two halves because, Sam, let me tell you, the first half was some of the most boring football I have ever seen. Not a single point was scored in the first quarter. Then we went into halftime. San Francisco with a 10-3 lead. Any thoughts on the first half, Sam?
Yeah. It seemed the 49ers could do no wrong. They were feeding McCaffrey, and McCaffrey was doing whatever he wanted to do. And I mean, it seemed the Chiefs could not stop McCaffrey. I mean, he was gaining 6 to 8 yards per carry or catch, and can't say the same about the second half, but yeah, it was super boring. It was 10-3 at half. I don't think anybody expected that score at half, but yeah, it was definitely a snoozer for the first half.
For sure. Definitely a snooze fest. A couple things to highlight: the Christian McCaffrey fumble. 49ers got the ball first and were moving the ball pretty easily down the field before McCaffrey fumbled in plus territory. That was obviously a big backbreaker when points were at a premium in the first half. I believe the Chiefs fumble was also in the first half. I think it was in the second quarter where the Chiefs were actually in the red zone. It might have been inside the 10-yard line when Pacheco fumbled.
Yeah.
And the Niners recovered that. And then, of course, the one touchdown was the trick play. Juwan Jennings throwing a double pass from Purdy to Jennings, and then Jennings, of course, threw to McCaffrey, who scored the touchdown. So a little bit of trickery out of San Francisco. It was a heavy dose of McCaffrey, but I think the key here, Sam, is missed opportunities, because that San Francisco defense had Kansas City in a chokehold in the first half. Only 3 points allowed.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. It was shocking to see Mahomes get off to a slow start, but you can never count him out.
Absolutely not, because in the third and fourth quarter, of course, and then this is where the game got good. Um, the second half score, not including overtime, so free overtime, was 16-9 in favor of Kansas City. So still not a lot of points scored, but that fourth quarter was pretty electric. But in this second half, I feel like we got to talk about the turning point in the game, the muff punt from
Yeah.
from San Francisco, which originally looked like it might have been Ray McLeod's fault off the punt, and he fumbled the pickup, but it turns out he actually made a really smart play and noticed that one of his blockers, if the ball had hit his foot and he was trying to recover it, probably should have fallen on it instead of trying to pick it up and run. But still, was a smart play to try and go pick it up. But the Chiefs recover it, and Sam, that seemed to be the big momentum breaker that the Chiefs, or the momentum changer that the Chiefs needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the turning point of the game for sure. Um, yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah, and I believe that happened in the third quarter. And then I believe the first play after it, he hit Marcus Valdez-Scantling for the touchdown. Then that brings us to the fourth quarter, um, where simply put, the 49ers missed a big time opportunity and a missed extra point.
yeah,
Loomed large, loomed absolutely huge. They were down 3 after the touchdown by the Chiefs. 49ers marched right down the field, scored a touchdown, an extra point away from going up 4, and it gets blocked. Gets blocked. 3-point game, and the Chiefs are able to kick a field goal and tie it. So uh, we talked about a special teams advantage for Kansas City, and that seemed to rear its ugly head for San Francisco.
yeah, and it seemed like Moody was on fire up until that point. I mean, we saw him hit a. Was that him that hit the? He held no, that wasn't. No, it was Moody hit the 55
Yep.
yarder early in the second quarter. It seemed at that point it was going to be a field goal battle, and it seemed that the 49ers had the advantage with Moody, but that missed field goal was heartbreaking and played a huge role in such a close game.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And that pretty much brings us to overtime. And boy, feels like there's a lot to talk about here. First off, the first example of we get to see of the new rules, where both teams get to possess the ball no matter what, and then after that, if the game is still tied, we will go to sudden death. Which this game we didn't really need it because we would have gotten the same result under the old under the old rules. But the big thing to talk about here has to be the decision by the 49ers to take the ball first after winning the coin toss in the uh, in overtime.
Yeah, we got a little bit of insight into this after the game with Juzek, and Juzek basically said we didn't know about the new overtime rules. So is that just the excuse they're coming up with? Or is that a legitimate reason why they took the ball first? A lot of questions
It
with that decision.
look it better not be like I hope it's an excuse that they're coming up with, because if they went into this Super Bowl without knowing what the overtime rules were, and then they got to overtime and they decided to take the ball because they thought it was the old rules, that would be coaching malpractice to the highest degree. That would be on the level of Mario Cristobal at Miami running the ball when they couldn't need,
Yeah.
fumbling, and then Georgia Tech winning the game. That is coaching malpractice to the highest degree. I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a lot of blame. I mean, obviously, 3 Super Bowl appearances for Kyle Shanahan, 3 losses, 3 games where he had a double-digit lead, 3 losses. That's already something that deserves some criticism. Now you add in the fact that, simply put, he didn't know the rules of overtime, and neither did his team. I, I cannot believe that. I
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And um, it's a shame. It really is a shame, because Shanahan really understands the game of football. He really understands how to use players in space, how to scheme players open. Like the touchdown to Christian McCaffrey, I saw a breakdown of it and talking about the blocking scheme and how there are many blocks there that normally would be considered offensive pass interference, but because the ball was behind the line of scrimmage, it wasn't, and he knew that and drew up a play like that. And there's even a block like 10 yards downfield when McCaffrey's catching it that looks like, why are you blocking down there? And then when he made a huge lane for him at the second level already, he's already
Yeah.
thinking about blocking at the second level, and that type of stuff is like unheard of in for play callers,
Yeah.
and he has that mind, but he just can't stop himself from doing stupid stuff like abandoning the run, as you said, when McCaffrey looked like he was the best player on the field, And of course, not knowing the goddamn rules of overtime.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. I don't understand it. So for me, that's number one person to blame if I'm San Francisco. Shanahan. Now I don't know what the fix is, right? Because like again, I do think he's one of the best head coaches in the NFL.
Yeah.
The dude's really good at his job. But my God, that's really inexcusable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really inexcusable. And then specifically, so we're talking about them not knowing the rules, but the way the game actually played out, because it's similar to college in that both teams possess the ball. So you think the team would like the other team get to take the ball first, and that was obviously big because the 49ers had a 4th and 4 in the red zone. If they had known what they had needed to win the game, that's an extra down to go and try and win the football game that they couldn't take advantage of because they took the ball first. Absolutely ridiculous. Even the Chiefs said that they were, if they had won, they would have deferred and given the ball, went on defense first. So yeah, not great stuff. And then once the Chiefs got the ball back, it was
it's wraps.
It was Mahomes time. I do want to shout out one of the better play calls, I think, was the 4th and 1 play call. There was a little triple option where it was hand to Pacheco, or Mahomes could run, or he could dump it off to Kelsey in the flat. Pacheco was covered. Kelsey was covered. He ran up for like 8 yards on a 4th and 1. Worked to a charm. He was untouched for like 5 yards or so.
Yeah.
Real impressive stuff from Patrick Mahomes. Now that we have the result of this game, we're certainly in dynasty territory, Sam. I feel like it's time for some legacy talk. And this is where we dump all the Patrick Mahomes stats, everything we can think of. So first, is Patrick Mahomes the greatest to ever do it? Like, has he cemented that already?
This not cemented yet, but damn close.
Well on his way.
Well on his way. He is at the coattail of Mr. Brady. I think if they go back and do it again next year,
the 3P would cement it.
I think a 3P cements it. It's kind of like the conversation with MJ and LeBron, and I've always had this stance. MJ in this term is the best player with the most accolades. And I think Tom Brady is that guy in the NFL. But I think Mahomes is the best player, but doesn't have the amount of championships, which is obviously still up for grabs, but he is getting damn close. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. And now is where we talk about the tough stuff, because if you're an NFL fan, watch out. The Kansas City Chiefs had by far their most flawed roster. They didn't have pass catchers. Right? They were injured at times. This team lost to the Raiders at home on Christmas. They were dead. They had the toughest road to a Super Bowl by DVOA in the history of the NFL. And they did it.
Yeah.
Like, how can you knock this team off if they can just do what they just did and beat by far and away, the two best teams in the NFL were Ravens and 49ers throughout the entirety of this season. Beat them both.
And 2 years ago, they traded perhaps the best wide receiver in the NFL, Tyreek Hill. We saw him almost break a record that hasn't been broken in forever. Trade him, go back to back. I think this year really showed how good of a coach Andy Reid is, because we saw the first couple of weeks they couldn't complete a damn pass, and he started getting Pacheco involved way more. They started running the ball more. Mahomes wasn't throwing the ball 40 times like we've seen in the past. and the ability to adapt. We talk it with every head coach, regardless of sport, and Andy Reid might be the best to ever be able to adapt to different situations with different groups. It's impressive, but obviously helps when you have one of the greatest to ever do it at quarterback.
Yeah, I just like this. I keep coming back to this was the year they were like their Super Bowl run. They were better than the Dolphins, but then at the Bills, the Bills were better than the Chiefs. Won that at the Ravens. Ravens were better than the Chiefs. Won that. And against the 49ers. I think the 49ers were better than the Chiefs. Won that. Incredibly scary stuff.
And not a single home game.
Not a single
Not a
home
single
game.
home game.
All on the road. All as underdogs. Literally doesn't matter. Yeah, this was the legacy one. This was the legacy one for sure. Very Brady-esque, where you're like, there's no way they should win it, but they just do, because that's what Mahomes and Reed and Kelsey do as a trio, and it's sickening. It's sickening. Yeah, but in all honesty, like if you're a 49ers fan, I don't even know how to feel, because I don't think you played bad. Like, your offense probably could have been better. The Chiefs' defense was very good. I didn't like Brock Purdy played. He didn't play good. He didn't play great, but I think he played well enough to win. Like, he played well enough to win a football game. He didn't play great. So your playmakers seemed to go away, other than McCaffrey. Like, there wasn't much from Debo. Wasn't much from Ayuk. I mean, Kittle, he got hurt.
So Debo.
Yeah, and Debo was down. Like, these guys
Dre
just
Greenlaw on
didn't
the
really
defensive side got hurt.
We need to talk about that in a minute.
Heartbreaking.
But like, I just like, you just got Mahomes, right? I don't know if that makes it feel better in the fact that you did all you could do, or it makes it feel worse in that, damn, like, we played a pretty good game and we still freaking lost because this guy is just inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And I'm glad I'm not the decision maker, because like you said, Purdy didn't play bad and he didn't play great. Do you need a great quarterback to beat Mahomes with a great defense? I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you had damn near every best position player on your offense. You named them all. You had a fantastic defense
that played well today.
Played well
today
against, let's put it how it is, not the best Chiefs offense that we've ever seen.
And Pacheco was like a non-factor today as well.
I mean, Travis Kelce's going to get his. They held him to one reception for 1 yard.
In the first half.
In the first half.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got beat by however you say it, Valdez-Scantling and McCole Hardman.
They were the touchdowns, yeah. Like,
I'll take that any day.
It's
incredible.
You just again, I mentioned the blame tree, and mostly on Shanahan. Like, with that being said, I still don't think he coached a horrible game. It wasn't like Baltimore after they played the Chiefs, where you're just like, what the hell happened? Where was the game plan? Like, that's not what happened. I think it was a mistake in overtime, and they abandoned the run a little bit, nowhere near that the Ravens did. But I still think he coached a good enough game to win. Brock Purdy played a good enough game to win. The defense played a plenty good enough to win, holding everything you said, especially in the first half, and they still couldn't beat Mahomes. That is insane to me. A couple of guys that I think probably could have won MVP. Honestly, Harrison Butker could have won MVP the way he played for the Chiefs. And also Trent McDuffie easily could have won MVP the way he played in the secondary. And I also think Chris Jones could have won MVP because specifically the most important play in overtime, the 3rd and 4, Juwan Jennings was wide open for a first down. Purdy just couldn't. There wasn't enough time for the play to develop. Similarly, against the Bills, if you remember, the one where Diggs was wide open underneath, but Allen took the shot. He was open, couldn't make the throw because Chris Jones was in his face. So, yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating as football fans to see all these teams. It's an absolute graveyard that has been decimated by Mr. Mahomes. And probably got to be way more frustrating as fans of those teams. So don't really know
Yeah.
what to tell them. Mahomes is just inevitable. Now, a ton of Mahomes stats have come out after the Super Bowl, of course. But I think there's one that sticks out to me as like borderline unfathomable. And that is in his playoff career, Patrick Mahomes is 5-1 in games in which he was trailing by double digits.
That's insane.
You know, the one loss was the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, which was against, of course, Tom Brady. 5-1, double digits. All other quarterbacks are like 6-48. I want to say 6-48. He's 5-1.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
That's the one to wrap this up. I mean, it's an absolute dynasty. The Chiefs. I mean, I think regardless of the result of this game, the fact that they made it to the Super Bowl cemented itself as a dynasty. But now undeniably a dynasty, two in a row. I mean, what? Won 2 in a row, won 3 of the last 4. Or no, that's not right. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's in his 5 years, he is 4 for 5 in Super Bowls, 5 for 5, or 3 for 5 in rings, 4 for 5 in Super Bowl appearances, and 5 for 5 in championship game performances or appearances. So
not bad.
Take that for what it's worth, man. It is absolutely ridiculous. The only person to ever beat him in the playoffs that is still playing, because of course Tom Brady did it that one year. The only person to do it is Joe Burrow. So
crazy.
Maybe he could be the Eli Manning to the Tom Brady to beat him. But any more thoughts on the Super Bowl, man? It's kind of wrapped it up. The Chiefs, they're inevitable. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. I don't know what else to say. You can't escape them. They will always be there in the end. And it's Patrick Mahomes' world. It's Travis Kelce's world. It's Taylor Swift's world. We're all just living in it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy how things have changed. Because I was telling you this, and I want to share how quickly things change, because one of my favorite websites to poke around on is a website called Sporkle. And it is a website that has a bunch of like trivia games, everything from like name the company logo to sports related to trivia to movies, posters, whatever. And they did a whole line which was obscure sports teams. And specifically, they had all the big 4 sports, and it said, like, can you name the most obscure blank team? And the way they came up with the level of obscurity was they asked 1,000 people. All they said was name a blank team, like NFL, NBA, MLB, and they took all the answers of what everyone said, and the lowest said answer was the most obscure team in the NFL. This was done maybe 8-10 years ago, obviously before Mahomes, before Kelce, before Reed. The Kansas City Chiefs were the most obscure team in the NFL based on that 1,000-person survey. The least amount of people said the Kansas City Chiefs when they said name an NFL team.
It's crazy.
Now they're an absolute dynasty. They have full power of Taylor Swift's fans at their back. Crazy how things have changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that wrapped it up for our game recap. We'll take a quick look back at some of our props that we talked about. Total viewership, I don't believe that number has come out yet.
Yeah, it's not.
So we'll put a pin in that. Number of times Taylor Swift will be shown. That was way over 4.5. We were counting. I think we crossed 4.5 in the first half.
Yeah.
Miscalculation on my part. I took the under. Total miscalculation. Gatorade color. Do you remember what you said? The Gatorade color?
Let me pull it.
Because I said orange, and it was actually purple, which I believe you were shocked to find out that one was the shortest odds.
Yep.
When we were looking at the book, and that was what Kansas City.
It was delayed.
Last
shouldn't count.
It was delayed. Yes.
Yeah, I had yellow.
You had yellow. I had orange. it was purple, which was the most likely, as we just said. National anthem, Reba coming in big time with the over. It was really close too. We were timing it as she was singing, but over a minute and 25, that was a lock. Usher's first song at the halftime show. Both of us got it wrong. I don't even remember what it was.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah. But that's a whole nother can of worms, the halftime show. And then the coin flip, of course. Both of us got it wrong. It was heads. Tails have failed me, but I will again never, ever pick heads. Ever. But yeah, I mean, we did okay on our props. Not great stuff out of the boys here. But that might wrap it up for the entirety of the big game, Sam. You got any other comments on the Super Bowl?
Not really, man. It was a good one. We all knew it when Mahomes got the ball with the game on the line. You knew it was wraps.
Yeah, it seemed like we did. Real quick, I guess before we wrap up, rate the halftime show out of 10. Go.
4.7.
4.7. I would have gone a flat 4. Not big fans over here. We don't need to dive into that too much, but yeah. Let us know what you guys thought, because we were not fans on crunch time. But really quick, before we get into questions and wrap up the episode, felt like a good time to go through the NFL awards. It was a great season, and we should highlight some of the major ones. So we'll start, of course, with the big one, MVP Lamar Jackson.
Not surprising.
Not surprising
he was
whatsoever.
The best player regular season.
Yeah, I think
not shocking.
I think he cemented it after they beat the living piss out of the 49ers on Christmas or Thanksgiving, or it was Christmas.
One of the holidays.
Yeah, it was Christmas, I think. Okay, next, comeback player of the year in an absolute upset. DeMar Hamlin did not win. It went to Joe Flacco, Sam. They get it right.
Yeah, they did. I see. So this is a football award. How many snaps did DeMar Hamlin play?
He had the fake punt. He had the fake punt against the Chiefs.
You got me there. I'm looking it up. He had 2 solo tackles. That was it.
That's huge. That's comeback player of the year worthy.
I understand why people are upset. Like, duh, he died on the field, but he didn't really. He played 14 or 5 games.
5 games, man.
Joe Flacco was unemployed.
Yeah. Can I tell you what, though? I don't think they got it right.
Who do you think should have gotten it?
I would have given it to Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Because, look, I know Flacco was unemployed. Yeah. He was in the league last year. Baker Mayfield was cut last year. He played, remember that game with the Rams that he came in and played? Like, he was cut from the Panthers. He played 1 game for the Rams and then didn't play again after that. And not only did he lead the team to a division championship, the Buccaneers won the NFC South, granted, terrible division, but they won it. And then they beat the Eagles. They won a playoff game with someone who was cut a year ago. I mean, Baker Mayfield was incredible this year. I get Flacco was unemployed.
Yeah.
And they went to the playoffs. Obviously, they kind of got smoked in their first round when Baker won a playoff game. But I mean, is it a regular season?
About Baker.
Is it a regular season award?
Well,
we can have that.
It's not the first time Baker's been shafted by the NFL anyway.
Correct.
So.
Dude, he continues to get shafted by the NFL. Baker, what a stud you are. But yeah, Joe Flacco wins comeback player of the year. Offensive player of the year, no surprise. Usually the best player. The player who has the best year that's not a quarterback. This year, Christian McCaffrey, no surprise whatsoever. Defensive player of the year, I also think they got this one right. I mean, there was some outrage about TJ Watt not getting it. And you look at the stats, I think there's an argument there. But just from the eye test, Myles Garrett was in the start of the season was by far and away the best defensive player in the NFL. He got injured, which he played through and
Yeah,
kind of messed with the stats a little bit. But the healthy Myles Garrett we saw was far and away the best defensive player in the league. So I think they got this one right, Sam.
agreed. I think he was the best defensive player for sure.
Yeah. Offensive rookie of the year, absolute landslide, as it should have been. CJ Stroud was unbelievable, obviously, throughout
Who
the
was the
season.
who came in second? Do you even know?
It doesn't list who came in second. I wonder.
I it doesn't matter. Um, Personally, I think he should have won MVP.
Oh, duh! It should have been obvious to us who came in second. It was Puka. Puka
Duh.
Nakua came in
Yeah.
second.
Personally, I think if the MVP was really the most valuable player, I think CJ Stroud should
Yeah,
win.
I mean,
But the fact he's a rookie gives him
the
offensive
team
rookie of the
wasn't a
year.
real contender. I mean, they won a playoff game, but like, you know what I mean? They weren't a real
I mean,
contender.
they had the second pick last year.
I know. I know. Well,
But
I'm not.
in this circumstance,
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't have won. I'm just talking about what the committee thought. Um, and then the defensive rookie of the year. Interesting. The Texans sweep. Will Anderson Jr. gets the nod here, Sam. Uh, this was the toughest one for me to call, I think, between Will Anderson and Jalen Carter uh, with the Eagles, because both were fantastic this year, but they ended up going with Will Anderson. What do you think?
I think this is the closest, like you said. To be honest, I think it comes down to more flashiness. I mean, D tackle versus linebacker.
Yeah,
Like, I think that does have a play in it, but
yeah, and an edge rushing linebacker to get the sacks versus an interior lineman, more of a run stuffer, can obviously get pressure as
yeah.
well. But yeah, that's for sure. And then the final award is Coach of the Year, and this went to Kevin Stefanski of the Browns. Interesting, because it's tough, because I think it goes right back to some of the debates we had. Is like, yeah, the Browns lost a lot due to injury. I mean, Nick Chubb, devastating injury. I think you can argue that it was addition by subtraction, losing Deshaun Watson to injury. I mean, the dude was absolutely awful this year. He's just not a good quarterback anymore. But you have D'Amico Ryans, who had the number 2 pick last year, as we just talked about. I might have gone D'Amico Ryans with this one.
Yeah. And yeah, I understand where they're coming from with this one, but uh I think D'Amico should have won this one too.
Yeah, might look like we are big time Browns, or I guess me, a big time Browns hater, going against the 2 Browns who won awards. But yeah, that's it for our NFL honors. And with that, the 2023 season has come to a close. What a fun season it was. Yeah, I mean, our teams, both of them kind of underperformed. Of course they did. Got to get used to it as sports fans, as we are, but should be an interesting offseason for both teams. The Cowboys already found their defensive coordinator. Funnily enough, they got Mike Zimmer, old Vikings head coach, to be their DC. So changes up in Dallas, and then Minnesota obviously has a big offseason ahead of them with the whole quarterback situation looming. But yeah, that's the 2023 season. It was really fun to cover. We won't have football for a while, unfortunately. Those of you who are spring football fans, I hope you enjoy the UFL. Right, that's what it's called, the UFL. But that will not be me. I don't know about you if you'll you'll be diving into the UFL a little bit. But I mean, we'll be back talking about some football, I think, come April, when the when the draft comes around. But
Yeah, when Caleb Williams turns into a bust.
when Caleb Williams turns into a bust, Sam Gotze, you can get that early February. That was, I mean, probably was stated even before that. But we have one question of the episode before we wrap up. And this one is from my mom, from Carrie Dislin. She asked, what do you think of Lisa Bluter's meltdown after the Nebraska loss? Was it a bad look or was it justifiable? So, for those of you who don't know, Iowa women's basketball, they went to Nebraska and they had an all-time collapse. Would have been worthy of a loser of the episode if we didn't have the biggest sporting event in history this weekend. But they were up 14 in the fourth quarter, 14 in the fourth quarter. And Caitlin Clark was 8 points away from getting the all-time NCAA women's basketball scoring record. And Lisa Bluter has been on tape saying that she wants Caitlin Clark to get the record at home. And when she was 8 points away in the fourth quarter, up double digits, the entirety of the Iowa offense completely changed. They stopped playing through Caitlin Clark, and Nebraska mounted a big-time comeback and ended up winning. Just the third loss for the Hawkeyes, and it was a big time bad look for Iowa. It really seemed like they lost the game because they wanted to give Caitlin Clark the opportunity to break the record at home. After the game, of course, Nebraska rushes the field, rushes the court, they celebrate. And then when Iowa wanted to go into the media room, turns out Nebraska was already in there, and Lisa Bluter is on tape saying that it was BS, that this is not Big Ten protocol. They have a plane to catch. So yeah, Sam, what are your thoughts on the Lisa Bluter meltdown?
Yeah. Game wise, terrible. Absolutely absurd. Wins are more important than records when it comes down to it. Terrible that she just didn't use Caitlin Clark in the fourth quarter, the best college basketball player in the nation right now, and there's no arguments there. So that's the first part. Then the second part, also absolutely out of pocket, absurd. They just knocked off the number two or three team in the nation. They're gonna want to talk. The media doesn't. They're gonna want to talk to winners first. And to throw, we have a plane to catch. You should yell at your director of ops who plans the travel schedule. Just a thought. You probably shouldn't be scheduling your plane within the hour of a game ending. Just a thought there. So totally out of pocket, totally absurd, both in game and post game. Don't really agree with what she said at all.
Yeah, I also I agree. But how does this get messed up? I mean, Iowa was off the court while Nebraska was celebrating on the court. I mean, they rushed the court. Like everyone was hanging out on the court. Like what were you doing? Like I understand that maybe you want to cool down after a big time loss, number 2 team in the nation, choked the way they did. You want to cool down before meeting the media. But by the time Nebraska clears out, gets to the locker room, and then to the media room, what the hell were you doing? Like I just don't know what Iowa was thinking there. But and then she also claimed that it wasn't Big Ten protocol that the visiting team gets to go to talk to the media first, which is true. But I just like if I'm Nebraska, I rushed the field or court. I keep doing that. I rushed the court, celebrated, and then I went to the media room. Went to the locker room, then the media room, and no one was in there. I'd probably assume that they got in and got out. I don't think it was a great look, to be honest, especially after the game she coached. But I do understand that emotions are high after a loss, and I don't think we should read too much into it. But yeah, probably not a great look for Lisa.
Definitely.
But that's going to wrap it up for episode 119 of Crunch Time. We talked a lot about the big game, of course, put a bow on the 2023 NFL season, talked a little bit about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs dynasty because it is alive, it is real, and it is here. And yeah, talked a little bit about Iowa basketball's meltdown. But You can follow the podcast on Twitter, on X, TikTok, and Instagram at crunchtime_pod. Make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast YouTube at Crunchtime with the N326 duo. But the clock has run out on this episode, and we'll see you in the next one on Crunch Time.
Yer.